In this video, we're going to do a project rundown, and I'm going to bring you up to date on what's been done and what still needs to be done on each of these projects. So let's go. Welcome to another episode of Country Boy Gas Garage. In this video, we're going to take a look at all these projects we got here, kind of discuss what we've done to get them to this point and what still needs to be done. So let's go take a look. Well, let's get started with this one. So this is a 1986 Chevy K30 4x4. It's dually 1 ton with a dump bed. This actually belongs to my landlord. But it's nice because it stays here on the property and we all get to use it as needed. It was parked for about 6 years or so due to failed brakes, and well, we did a revive and drive. You got to check that one. It's got a 454 big block in it. It wasn't locked up, but it had been sitting for about 6 years and had mice in it, and we had to do some work and get it running and driving. More recently, we cleaned it up and went through the brakes. And the last video that we did on this, I'd taken it for a test drive, and the brakes and everything was working, except for we still had some brakes dragging in the back. Something was hanging up back here, and just a week ago, I pulled this all apart and pulled the wheels off, pulled the drums off, and sure enough, we had a brake dragging over here on this side, and the axle seals were leaking. So we replaced the axle seals and replaced the brakes, and I took it for a test drive yesterday, and it's working good. Fires right up and it runs. Brakes are working good. We still have some front springs that we need to get repaired and maybe a tune-up on it, and then we'll check to see if that dump bed still works. And well, if you guys are interested in more content on this one, let me know. If you want, we'll try to take this truck to the dump and see if that dump bed will work. It's full of trash and it's been in there for 5 or 6 years. So let me know if that's something you guys are interested. We could try that. But yeah, it's a really cool truck, and I'm glad we got it back on the road. Make sure you go check out the video on that one. Well, next, let's take a look at the RatRod. You know, I just did a video on this one, so if you haven't checked it out, please go check out that video. Let's go. Yeah, we got... this thing running after sitting here for 13 years. The motor was full of water and completely locked up, and well, after a bit of work, we got it freed up and we got it running. I didn't get it idling because the fuel pump wasn't hooked up to a fuel source. You know, we were just dumping fuel down the carb and got it to pop off and run for a bit. You know, if I hooked it up to a fuel tank, we could have probably got it to idle, but, you know, we just dumped fuel down the carb and got her to fire that way. Eventually, we'll get this back on the channel, though. We'll get my buddy Kelly that helped me build it, and we'll do some more fab work and get this thing more complete. So make sure you go check out that video. Of course, I'll link it up here in the corner. You know, not only do we have this RatRod, but we also started gathering parts to build a second one. So let's go take a look at that, which is right here, piled up with all the rest of these parts that I've now declared this area the boneyard. But yeah, we got another Willys pickup cab, just like that RatRod. Now, even though we gathered these parts to build a RatRod, together we kind of changed our mind and started building a Gambler 500 rig. We're looking to build a lifted 4x4 monster rat truck. So now, with all these other projects, this one's definitely on the back burner though, guys. Yeah, like I was saying, back burner. We already have so many other projects that I just wanted to grab these before the crusher got them at the wrecking yard for a future build. So we've been piling all this stuff up over here in the boneyard. And we'll keep gathering parts. Looking for a four-wheel drive chassis of sorts. And we'll build a lifted 4x4 monster rat truck. But you know, that's going to require a bit of fabrication, and I'm not really set up for a lot of fabrication. We'll be working on that though. I'm going to turn my makeshift shed into a working shop. It's going to be a tiny space, but well, let's go back over there and take a look. This is what I'm talking about. It's a 12 by 25 foot, you know, shed that is my only enclosed inside space. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of work and make this functionable. Right now it's just being used as storage, and it's not wired with outlets, doesn't have any heat or insulation. It doesn't even have doors on the front here. I just boarded it up to, you know, keep the tweakers out.
2 tweaker hunters, buddy. Wow, man.
But we'll have to build some doors for it, get this thing wired up and get some heat in here, and start using this space so we could start fabricating, and we'll have an inside space to work. And so far everything's just outside in the weather, and for the most part that's not too bad. But when it's just raining like it was last week, you can't get nothing done, and just pouring. So well, and for an example of outdoor storage, I was just looking at the Nova today, and look how bad the mold is. This happens almost every season, but it just gets so moldy. Look at the steering wheel. Disgusting. Now I've got dehumidifiers and dryers set up to take the moisture out of the air, but man, it still gets moldy. So I'm gonna have to break out the Clorox wipes and clean this up. But yeah, this is another project that we'll be working on. 1970s Chevy Nova. I've had this. I've had this since I was 16. You know, I bought it for $200, 1991. It was a little wrecked, and it was just a 6-cylinder car, and drove it like that in high school. But eventually I motor swapped it, and now it's got a 350 with a turbo 350 transmission. It's got a lot of rust, but it's still a fun car. You know, driving it for 32 years now. But it got parked last spring, I think. The gas tank was leaking, and I think the filler neck came loose. Yeah, it's leaking at the filler neck, and it's all rusty at the top of the tank as well. But I got a new gas tank for it, so we'll have to swap out this old tank and get the new one in, and maybe get this back on the road. It's probably been 6 or 8 months since it's ran. As a matter of fact, we should probably give it a cold start. Let's pop the hood and take a look here. And it's all pretty crusty. I started stealing parts off of it. Like the radiator cap is missing for the bus and a few other things, but should fire up. Like I was saying, it's been sitting here for about 8 months. Let's give it a try. Let's fire it up and see what she sounds like. Yes, I cleaned the steering wheel off, and nice and clean now. Let's go. shop air freshener. Now, I did this interior in high school. It's crushed velvet diamond tuck. I would like to redo all this with stock style interior someday. The headliner's still doing okay. You know, there's one little rip over there. You know, this was a blue interior, and I just used a black vinyl dye and dyed this. Painted the dash black, put in some black carpet. And we got a B&M ratchet shifter, B&M shift kit in the transmission. Well, still runs good after sitting all these months. Yeah. Well, and then that brings us to the bus. A 1948 Ford F5 short bus. We found this abandoned in the forest. It had been sitting there for 25 plus years. It was full of rats and covered in moss and ferns. We did a whole series on this. So if you haven't seen those videos, you got to go check them out. You know, we ended up going through most of this thing and getting it back on the road. And after it was back on the road, I drove it back to the church that it used to belong to. We showed up at the church. They had a reunion, and we met with some of the elders and one woman that used to ride this as a child. Her dad used to drive it, and she used to ride right behind him. So it was really neat to meet with her and hear her story, and then learn more of the history on the bus. You know, it was just it was renovated for the church just down the road in a barn, and through the 60s and 70s and maybe into the 80s, the church had this, and then eventually they sold it, and the person they sold it to left it in the forest, and it sat there until I found it. And you can go watch all of those videos. We did a whole series, the abandoned bus playlist. You know, originally this thing would have came with a flathead, but you know, when the church acquired it, they retrofitted it for them and went through it and changed some things. One of them being the motor, and now it's got either a 312 or a 292 HD Y block. It was completely locked up when we found it. We got it freed up, and I rebuilt the carburetor and redid the cooling system and put in some new belts and hoses, new starter, rewired this whole bus front to back, and did all the brakes. And it runs pretty good. The last time I drove this, I did develop an oil leak as I was parking it right here. I believe one of the remote oil lines was leaking, so we'll have to take a look at that. Otherwise I'd start it up. But yeah, we still got a lot of work to do on the interior, and you know, a few things here and there, like these doors. These doors are pretty rough and they need to be restored. The bottom's pretty rusty. Down here at the bottom they would have a bracket that connect them together, but that has deteriorated away and is now missing. So this door is pretty much just floppy and bent, and the windows broke. So need to work on those doors. And you know, the interior was gutted, and I did find some seats. I've got several sets of these. They don't really look the part, but man, this place is still a mess. Last time we used this was for the Halloween trunk or treat event. You got to watch that video, guys.
Here comes some naughty these ones. I like to eat your fish. Oh, would you like some candy? You want to go in this way? Here you go. You can have
Guys, it didn't get very many views, but we had a blast, and we had decorated this whole thing like a haunted bus, and my wife sat in here dressed like a witch, scaring the kids, giving them candy, and they were genuinely scared too. We won best trunk, and we got an award from Napa and the Hooligans Car Club, so that was great. But yeah, I got 3 sets of these seats that I'll get reupholstered. Maybe the front seat get reupholstered too. We'll get them all to match. and we'll get some flooring down, and we'll get this a little more comfortable in here, and we'll be able to give people rides. You know, a few little odds and ends I need to take care of still. We don't have wipers, and the instrument cluster I restored, but with that headlight switch, it's not really fitting, so I gotta tweak that a little bit to get it to fit. And the heater fans don't work yet, and yeah, but we'll get back to this soon. This is gets so much attention wherever it goes. It's hard to miss. So yeah, with all these projects, you know, the last thing I need is another project, but that's exactly what I got. Right in here, inside this shed, is the channel's next project. I bought it about 5 years ago, and well, I'm gonna leave a lot of those details to the next video. You know, some of you already know what it is, but I haven't officially presented it to the channel yet. So next week video, we're gonna be showing you what's in this shed. And along with that, we're gonna start another small series on converting this shed into a functional shop. You know, we're gonna have to run a sub panel out here, wiring some outlets and some lights, maybe some insulation, a heat source, but we'll disclose more of that on the next video. But yeah, we'll get started on this next project as well. Last thing I need, another project. Well, that's about it for this video, guys. I'm sorry we didn't get much done. I just had to bring you up to date on the projects before we start on the new one. And we start that new shop build series as well. So I really appreciate all you guys watching. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And of course, I want to give a huge shout out to all my members. Without your membership and your monthly contribution, I couldn't do any of this. So thank you guys. And if you haven't joined yet, please consider joining the membership. I really appreciate it. Now I want you guys to leave some comments on what you think of these projects, which ones we should focus on, maybe some ideas of what we should be doing with them. And of course, be sure to stick around for next week's video when we're going to introduce the new shop project. So like always, make sure you subscribe to the channel, you like, comment, and share with your friends. Until next time, peace.